Lady we have with us on the line right now, a friend of the show, also very talented, a lot of respect for her, does a great job representing Nevada as a congresswoman. That is Dina Titus. Congresswoman Titus, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fine. How are you fellas doing?
Doing great, Dina.
It's been a very busy news day, Dina, that is for sure. So I want to get your reaction. We actually had Roger Stone on the show in the first hour. We got his reaction. Talk about the opposite end of the spectrum now. Dina, what is your reaction to Joe Biden's pick, Kamala Harris?
Well, I'm very excited about it. I've met her on several occasions. She's been to Nevada a number of times. In fact, she says Nevadans are her first cousins. And just think, this is the first time we've had somebody on the presidential ticket that's who's from west of Texas. So it'll be a good way for Western issues like environmental issues, public lands, things to have an advocate for us in the White House.
I agree, Dina. So I'm beginning into debates with a lot of callers today about this. And I said to myself, and I say to the callers, why is it we've never had a minority as a woman, running as a vice president or a president? It's certainly not because they haven't been qualified enough. And people are attacking Joe Biden, some people. Why did he say he was only going to pick someone who was an African-American and who was a woman? And I say, well, because they haven't had the opportunities. It's not because they haven't been qualified. What's wrong with Joe Biden doing what he did? I think it's a good thing for the country. What do you say?
Oh, I think absolutely. We've seen that in the last few months as we've talked about systemic racism. She's not only the first African-American woman, and those are strong voters for the Democratic Party, but the first Indian-American, Asian-American. So her family were immigrants, so she brings that perspective too. But I think he chose her not just because of those qualifications, those demographic characteristics, but because of her experience, her knowledge. She is simpatico with him, as he said, and she's ready to start to work on day one. She doesn't need any on-the-job training, so she will be a great partner.
I agree with everything you said there, Dina. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the attacks on the right. I mean, I feel like a lot of people on the right in the last 24 hours are trying to throw anything that sticks on the wall. They talk about a relationship she had 30 years ago, which I personally don't care about. They talk about, as a prosecutor, that she might have overcharged in marijuana cases, but when you actually look at the statistics, it's not true. A lot of things on the right. They also say that Kamala Harris called Joe Biden a racist, completely factually inaccurate, and it was those in Trump's own administration that said that yesterday. Blatant lie. What do you say as a congresswoman to some of your friends on the right that are saying things about Kamala Harris that are just not true?
Well, we're accustomed to the Trump administration putting out untruths. They don't seem to be bound by any of those kind of moral standards. But they would have attacked anybody Joe Biden picked. They would go after any choice because they really don't have a message. They don't have anything to run on. They certainly can't run on his leadership of the pandemic. The economy's in the tanks. Nevada's got unemployment one of the highest in the country, twice as high as the national average. So they're going to try to attack her. But just as you said, they can't find anything that's really sticks to her. So it's going to be hard for them to make that case in any believable way.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Dina Titus, of course, Congresswoman, representing, of course, the state of Nevada, and we always appreciate it when she takes some time to join us. So do you think, and I know, Dina, you've been a strong supporter of Joe Biden, there are people on the right that are saying Joe Biden's going to drop out. I mean, there are some ridiculous claims on social media. I don't pay attention to all of them, but I laugh at them sometimes. That Kamala Harris is going to be the president, that Joe Biden didn't make this decision to pick her, that in 3 or 4 months he's going to step out of the race. He's got Alzheimer's. Apparently there are a lot of people out there that think they're doctors as well. What do you make of that?
Oh, I think that's all ridiculous. It's the conspiracy theorists that'll come up with anything. Joe Biden's in good shape. He's ready to take over this country, heal the nation, bring us back together, and represent us on the international stage. But it's a nice thing that he has somebody from the next generation. It kind of goes back to that old pattern of picking somebody who then is groomed to perhaps be president in the future, but certainly not now.
Can I just ask you this straight up here? And I'm going to go both parties, both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And I made the case last segment. Look, there's no question, Dina, that Democrats have given more opportunities to minorities than Republicans. Now, I'm not calling Republicans racist for doing that, but it's just a fact. Why is it, though? Why is it that you think that? And on both sides, we haven't had a minority and a female that has ran as a president or a vice president. Why do you think that is? Is it racism? What is the reason for it?
Well, there's a lot of sexism still in this country, too. You know, we've had a woman as vice president only twice in the country, and then last time, certainly, there was a lot of sexism against Hillary Clinton. Sometimes laws change before values do, but I think this is going a long way to make people very excited, to show that the Democratic Party is the face of the nation, to have somebody in the White House who brings a perspective of perhaps people who have not been heard. And it's such a contrast to Trump. He is not only anti-immigrant, but he has been very racist in some of his statements, like in Charlottesville, for example, and his opposition to removing some of the names of the Civil War generals from our parks and schools.
Let me talk to you, Dina. I support Joe Biden as well. I will be voting for him. I've been very clear on that. With that being said, I do have some concerns, and I want to know if your concerns align with mine at all. They may or may not. I think Joe Biden needs to be out there more. Now, I don't agree with Republicans when they say he's been in the basement. I think that's a cheap shot. But with that being said, I think he needs to do more press conferences. I think he needs to do more TV appearances. I think he should go on Fox News. I think that was a mistake that Hillary Clinton made. She didn't make enough appearances. She didn't campaign as well as she could have. I think Joe Biden, if anything Democrats have learned, is that Joe Biden cannot make the same mistakes. Would it kill Joe Biden if he went on a show like a Sean Hannity? Would he be attacked? Yeah, probably. But I think there's a chance that he could reach out to others that might be independents. I just think that Hillary Clinton made some mistakes that I'm afraid Joe Biden might make in the next several months. Do you agree with that at all?
Well, you know, I'll go anywhere somebody asks me. I've been on Fox, so I know what you mean. I think that this convention that's coming up is going to be the beginning of a campaign in the fall where you'll see more of Joe Biden. You know, it's so strange campaigning during this time when you can't go out and shake hands and kiss babies and attend rallies and knock on doors.
Right.
And he's trying to make the point that we need to follow the scientists and not the politicians when they tell us how to get out of this pandemic. But I think you'll start to see more of him. He and Kamala are going to make a press event today, come out together and speak as the first time as a ticket. And they're doing a lot to try to make the convention more inclusive and more wide-reaching.
I think one topic that is certainly going to come up in the debates, certainly with Kamala and probably Joe Biden, will be some of the exchanges that they had on the stage together as you watch the Democratic debate. As you know, Kamala Harris never called Joe Biden a racist. In fact, she said she does not believe he's a racist, but she did disagree with some of his policies when it came to race relations and the busing issue. What do you make of that whole exchange today?
Well, if you remember, during those debates, all the Democrats on the stage agreed on about 90% of the policies, and that's the same for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. You have to try to do something to stand out and make news, and I think that was her moment. But you also remember that Joe Biden had written down on his notes when he was talking about her that he didn't hold a grudge. He understood that, and he has some regrets himself about past votes that were cast during different times and under different circumstances. But he's a big man. He can take on some criticism and appreciate it and do better. Look at Donald Trump. Anybody who criticizes him gets fired.
What you're just talking about, Dina, is what I posted on social media yesterday. I think you'll probably agree with this. I said when women in Donald Trump's history have challenged him, he's usually gotten rid of them, both women and men. Here's a situation where Joe Biden is challenged by a powerful black woman, and I believe that he appreciated it, and he actually respected her more for doing that. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I think that's very clear that he wasn't intimidated by it. He wasn't insulted by it. He took it in the right way, and this is part of making amends for some of those things that she was talking about during a different time with school. But
that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Dina, I have a question about AB4, the voting bill that was just introduced a couple weeks ago. It comes out that 223 ballots were actually sent to the wrong address in the state of Nevada. I don't believe that we have the infrastructure to actually handle a full universal mail-in ballot voting process for the 2020 presidential election. What do you have to say about the 223,000 ballots that were sent to the wrong address? And do you actually think that we have the systems in place to make this work without it actually lasting far too long to actually know what the result of the election will be in Nevada?
Well, some of those went to inactive voters who have moved out of the state or, with the economy so bad as it is, you're going to lose a lot of people going other places to look for jobs. I know we want to be sure that the post office is able to handle it, and that's why I support the HEROES Act that's got federal money to shore up the post office. But, you've got a Republican Secretary of State who says she thinks with the right resources they'll be able to do it. And even with some of those going to the wrong addresses, there was no evidence of fraud in our primary, and that was the first time we'd ever done mail-in voting. So I'm confident that that the Secretary of State and the legislature looked at all of those possibilities and that we'll be able to do it. It's very important that people have faith in our elections because that's the cornerstone of our democracy. Mm-hmm. Also, if they think the election wasn't legitimate, then you'll have Donald Trump trying to make an argument for staying in office regardless of what the returns are.
Yeah, and I think that's going to happen. I agree with you. I think that's going to happen regardless of what the outcome is. He's going to say it was fraud. But Dina Titus just joining us, Congresswoman for, of course, representing us here in the state of Nevada. I want to move on to coronavirus, if I may. As you know, in the last few weeks, the White House's own task force has said that Clark County specifically is in the red zone, recommending restaurants, bars, be shut down. What have you seen in the numbers in the last week or so? We know you get updates all the time. How do you see the trends going for the state of Nevada and particularly here in Las Vegas?
Well, we do get updated with the numbers from the governor several times a week. We plateaued, and then when we reopened some of the restaurants and bars, it started to climb again. I think the governor was smart to say, let's stay with phase 2 and not move ahead, and to make it mandatory to wear masks. I know bars are still closed and restaurants are open, but I think they need to be very careful about maybe just doing outdoor seating or social distancing within the restaurants. It's so hard to keep a tab on people coming from out of state because you don't know whether they've been exposed back home in Arizona, California, or not, even if people here in Nevada are doing the right thing. I believe the last couple of days, though, the numbers were down. And the really good thing is that the percentage of people who are being cured as opposed to passing away from the illness has gone up. So that tells me that our, I guess you call it therapeutics, have gotten better.
Good. Thank God.
The cases are down to, I think there was 528 today. There was a couple, or 500 or 600 yesterday. So it was 1,200 a couple weeks ago.
Well, that's good news.
Mortality rate's about 1.6%. I have a question just about Steve Sisolak in general, the governor, obviously, of Nevada. Donald Trump has stated on multiple occasions that he will not be bailing out any Democratic states. And the $1 trillion that was trying to be passed by Pelosi and Schumer, that was obviously shut down. There was no deal made there, and Donald Trump passed the executive orders. If the state of Nevada does not, you mentioned unemployment being very, very high. If the state of Nevada does not get federal funding, how much financial trouble will we be in?
Oh, it'll be terrible. You know, they had that special session of the legislature to cut the budget drastically. We already operate on a shoestring. The Clark County School District has cut the budget. Clark County itself has cut their budget. So we need those federal dollars. That notion that you're going to bail out states run by Democrats is ridiculous here in Nevada because, you know, we have a constitutional amendment that you have to have a balanced budget. Also, it takes 2/3 to raise taxes, so we haven't been acting irresponsibly here in the state, but we do need those federal dollars, and I strongly support that because, remember, the federal dollars don't just go to support state government.
Right.
They go to support teachers and firefighters and police officers, those frontline responders that you need so much during a pandemic or any kind of emergency.
Sure. And you said it yourself. If you don't have a balanced budget, you're not going to get a bailout. It's as simple as that.
At this point, how much federal money do you think that the state of Nevada needs?
Well, I can't give you a figure. I haven't looked at their budget. I think they were talking about 4% cuts across the board. There would be, I think the last figure that if the HEROES Act passed, it'd be something like $8.5 billion that the state would get, and that would be for state, and some would go to local government.
Gotcha. A couple more quick questions for you, Dina, then we'll let you go. What about Trump? What are your feelings on Donald Trump going around Congress, signing those executive orders? As a congresswoman, been in office a while, what do you make of that?
Well, we have separation of powers for a reason. That's why the Founding Fathers put checks and balances in the Constitution. The president doesn't have that power. He's just doing that for show. Just think, for example, he was going to extend the unemployment benefit, but he was going to extend it not by $600 like Congress did in a bipartisan vote, but by $300 and make the states pick up the other $100. Well, the states can't afford to do that, so nothing is going to happen.
Sure.
And one of them was to make insurance companies cover pre-existing conditions, and we already do that under Obamacare. So that was just a lot of attempt to raise his poll numbers and make people think he's doing something, when in reality he's not, and some of the others will probably be taken to court and won't make any difference either.
Gotcha. I thought I would get that answer from you, and I agree with you. I want to talk to you a little bit about something that you're a part of. The House is targeting this plaque that is honoring this racist Nevada lawmaker. It's from a century ago. His name is Senator Francis Newlands, a Democrat, by the way. He served in the House and Senate from 1893 to 1917. Now these lawmakers, also from the District of Columbia and Maryland, are seeking the removal of this plaque honoring this former U.S. Senator. Can you talk to us a little bit about this and why you've decided to be a part of this and give us a little bit of background on it?
Well, this is one of those things in history that you can correct and can make a difference. Newlands was known for the Newlands Water Project, where he took a lot of water and used it for agricultural irrigation, and that was true up in northern Nevada around Fallon. But he was also very racist. He helped to develop that neighborhood called Chevy Chase, which is right outside of Washington in Maryland. But part of the provisions for that neighborhood is you could not be black or Jewish and live there. So if we want to honor some Nevadans, let's pick some real heroes, not somebody like Newlands.
I could not agree.
Lance Sauter, for example, he's the one who desegregated casinos and gaming. He'd be a better person to honor.
I could not agree with you more. I think it's a case-by-case basis. In this circumstance, you guys are absolutely right on this one. I think that's a disgrace, and I didn't even know that this senator was that horrible. Even if it was hundreds of years ago, it doesn't matter. There's so many great people on this planet that are either still with us or not with us that should be honored. Congresswoman Dina Titus, a very busy time for you, always busy, but I always appreciate it when you take the time to join us on the Vegas Take. Thank you so much, Dina. Really appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I always enjoy talking to y'all, so call me anytime.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I love that accent, too, by the way. I appreciate talking to y'all. I love that. She's awesome. Congresswoman Dina Titus. Always appreciate her time.